Welcome back to Light the Fuse, the only Mission Impossible podcast hosted by two guys who have spent more time watching these movies than interacting with their significant others.
That is so true.
It's true.
That is so true and so sad.
It's sad.
I know, and I have a baby now.
And you haven't...
And I have not really interacted with her much.
No.
Because I'm too busy watching these movies.
Yeah, studying the contours of Tom Cruise's face.
I'm Charles Hood.
This is Drew Taylor, and we're back. And this is a big one, and we are so thrilled to finally be able to share it with people because we walked out of this interview on top of the world.
Yeah.
It was great.
Paul Hirsch, legendary editor, Oscar-winning editor. And when we get to part 3, we talk to him about Star Wars. So hang in there. We will get into that.
You will be rewarded.
There will be a lot of Star Wars talk later, but this week and next is mostly just Mission Impossible and other stuff. His philosophies in general. Brian De Palma. It's a lot of really cool stuff.
We have some stuff to get out ahead of though at the beginning of this episode.
Yeah, we just want to urge everyone to go back and listen to our old episodes. We've had interviews with Christopher McQuarrie, Brad Bird, Robert Elswit, and Eddie Hamilton, Lauren Balfe. I mean,
Wade Eastwood.
So many amazing people, Oscar winners, amazing crew people who've contributed to this series and so many other movies. And we talked to them about not just Mission Impossible, but other stuff as well. So it's other projects that they've done that we really love. So it's great stuff. And also, let's talk about other episodes, just you and me. I mean, we did the making ofs for the first 3 movies are awesome, and Unmade Missions.
We did the Oliver Stone episode.
Right, the Oliver Stone. We did one all about the script for what would have been Oliver Stone's Mission Impossible 2, and that is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of great content to go look at.
Yeah.
I also wanted to bring up, we posed the question, what's a good name for the fans of Mission Impossible? Mission heads or whatever. You said
missionaries.
You said missionaries. That's the thing I think that stuck the most for me. I wanted to tell you about our good friend Adrian Correa, who is a cinematographer. He shot my movie Night Owls. He just shot season 2 of Glow and Rami, which is on Hulu. Critically acclaimed show Rami on Hulu. Adrian listens to our show. He said that we should call him Swanbecks after Mission Commander Swanbeck.
I like that, but we could call him Brazzles. We could call him a lot of things.
I think, but we have such a soft spot in our heart for the name Swanbeck.
Yes, we do. Yeah, I'm into it. I like the missionaries more, but I'm glad you floated it.
Yeah. All right. So just I guess we got the interview with Paul. We can start it up and just let you know that he just kicks it off with right away. He's telling us a story about Brian De Palma shooting his wedding.
It's amazing. And we'll be back after the episode too, so come back for that. All right, so we're here with Paul Hirsch, and Brian De Palma recorded your wedding?
He filmed it.
Okay.
He filmed my wedding. He had borrowed a camera from a guy I was working for at the time, and my wife and I were married in her mother's backyard in Mahwah, New Jersey. Brian came out. I remember he was dressed in a seersucker suit and he had a tie on. And it was a warm day. It had rained for a week and we were hoping for sun. And of course the sun came out, but it was really hot. And Brian got there early and he got me, putting my jacket on and signing the documents. And he ran around. He would get as we approached we had built a huppah. It's a little house that you get married under in the Jewish faith, and it was outside in the yard. So he ran around in front of us. He got shots of us coming toward camera, and he had a side shot. And then, as the rabbi was performing the ceremony, he had close-ups of each of us. He had an insert of the foot breaking the glass, and he shot 11 rolls of film.
Split screen of you and your wife.
And
no split diopter.
After 11 rolls, he looked at the camera and he said, "I wonder what this does." And there was a switch. He said, "Maybe I should shoot one roll with the switch the other way." And he did. And when we got the film back from the lab, we got 11 rolls of black leader and 1 roll of some stragglers at the party dancing.
Oh, no.
And that was it. So,
wow.
So was that the only...
Turned out it was a fader that was non-reflex. So he was looking through, it was a non-reflex camera. So he was looking through a viewer, but it didn't show what the lens was seeing.
Wow.
Oh, no.
So He shot 11 rolls of black leader and 1 roll of...
And that was all you had for your wedding video?
Well, there was no video in these days. This is pre-video.
Right, okay.
The Betamax was in 1970, came out in 1975, and we were married in 1974.
Wow.
So Super 8 was, we could have had 16 millimeter, but it was just home movies. Home movies were 8 millimeter or Super 8. And so this is the lost De Palma film. He said it was a great film.
He would.
He saw
it. Lost Brian De Palma film.
Yeah, he saw it all. He's the only one who's ever seen it. But
and you continue to work with him for...
I do appreciate the effort that he put in, because he was running around and he really covered it beautifully. Unfortunately, these things happen.
They do.
When I worked on King of the Gypsies with Sven Nykvist, Sven was Ingmar Bergman's cameraman.
And Woody Allen, too, for a while, right?
Yeah.
He did a few movies.
But he was,
mostly.
Wild Strawberries.
The big...
Seventh Seal and some great Ingmar Bergman movies. So anyway, we were shooting King of the Gypsies, and they're out in the street in New York, and there was a sudden snowfall. So Eric Roberts lay down on the sidewalk and stayed there and waited until the snow piled up on him an inch or two. It was coming down very fast. So he lay there, and then they did a shot of him getting up with the snow falling off him, as if he'd been sleeping in the street, and he woke up and we got to dailies the next day, and it came up and it was black. It was just, he had underexposed it horribly. And what he said was very endearing to me. He looked at it and he said, "Oops."
Wow.
He was a very sweet man. So.
Well, our first question is obviously just how did you come to Mission Impossible? Would you have done it with anybody besides Brian, or was it just sort of like, this is Brian's new movie, I'm going to do it?
I think there's a misconception about how editors get work. Okay. I've heard this from other people, like, how do you decide what picture to work on, And for me, it was always, how do I get a job? That was my concern. Right. So if I'm working, I don't have to worry about it. And if I'm not working, I usually take the first thing that comes along. So it was not a hard decision because I wasn't working. Right. I had just finished helping out on Judge Dredd with Sylvester Stallone. Okay. Which featured some of the worst performances I've ever seen in any movie. And were you the one who was trying to get it from an R to a PG-13? No, it was nothing like that. I was just trying to get it up on its feet. Right. And I kept saying, cut to the robot, because that was the only performance that you could really believe. Right. It was dismal. Anyway, Brian had already hired Jerry Greenberg to cut Mission Impossible. Oh. I had introduced Jerry to Brian when I was unavailable for Dress to Kill. I had cut Star Wars and I was going on to Empire Strikes Back, and Brian was doing Dress to Kill at the same time, and he said, "Who am I going to hire?" And I said, "Well, Jerry Greenberg is the best editor in New York. You can't go wrong with Jerry." And he did a great job on Dress to Kill, and he did a lot of pictures with Brian after that. It was almost like I might never get my job back. Am I crazy introducing him to Jerry Greenberg? But anyway, he had hired Jerry to do Mission Impossible. They had done a number of pictures by then. And the studio was concerned about getting the picture ready in time for a Christmas release. So this was, this was spring of 95, I guess it was.
So it was supposed to come out at Christmas?
Well, the studio wanted it at Christmas. I think Tom Cruise wanted it in May. Okay. But in any event, Paramount signed me to they insisted on giving me a flat 7-day buyout, which was higher than my normal rate, but less than I would have made if I had my normal rate plus overtime. Okay. So they wanted to make sure that they didn't get stuck with a lot of overtime because they thought we're really going to have to rush to get it ready for Christmas. As it turned out, the picture came out in the spring, and I never worked a single weekend on the whole picture. So I did, financially I did quite well on it. But
that's good.
what happened was Jerry and I went over to London, and the first scenes were shot in Prague, and there were three major set pieces in the film. One was the opening scene in the embassy where the crew gets killed, and the second was they break into the CIA, and the third was the chopper in the tunnel. So because Jerry had been hired first, we thought he should cut the embassy sequence. It was the first big sequence that was coming in. So we started work together, but something happened. I'm not sure what, but Brian let Jerry go. They had a history, and I don't know what that history was, and something, Jerry, it was for both of us, it was our first experience working on computerized systems. We were working on Lightworks, and it was similar to Avid now. There was a timeline and a screen where your source material and your cut was on the other side. And Jerry was a moviola editor primarily. He didn't really like flatbed editing, which is what I had preferred. And when I spoke with him, he said, I don't really look at the timeline very much. And I thought, I don't really understand that, because how can you not look at the timeline? But he was used to looking at the screen and just reacting to the screen. And when Brian let him go, he showed me what Jerry had been working on, and he had accidentally repeated sections of the cut, not realizing that he sort of got lost in going back and forth. He had duplicated sequences, and there was a lot of great cutting in it, but it was a little incoherent because things were repeated that shouldn't have been. And so I had to sort of straighten that out. But it was, there's a lot of his work is still there, but he didn't want his name on the picture after he left.
Okay. But he only did the embassy stuff at the beginning?
Part of the embassy stuff.
Part of the embassy stuff, okay.
Yeah, he left pretty early in the game.
Okay. Well, a number of people left during this production, and we were talking about on the way over here about Alan Silvestri's score.
Yeah, well, it had been my idea to introduce Brian and Alan because I had worked with Alan a couple of years earlier, and I found him to be really easy to get along with and sweet and very talented. And I thought, Italian American, they should get along great, and they did. And we were in Marin County. We moved the cutting room there to be near ILM to keep an eye on the effects that were being done. And Alan flew up. I think he lives in Carmel or someplace, in Big Sur or something like that. And he flies his own plane, so he flew up and he came to the cutting room, and it was everything was great. And then never in the 6 or 8 weeks subsequent to the meeting did Brian ever pick up the phone and say, hey, Alan, I'd like to hear what you're doing. So so no surprises on the day. And Alan never picked up the phone and said, hey, Brian, I'd like you to come here, listen to what I'm doing. So there are no surprises on the day. And on the day, they played the first cue, and Brian said, sounds like Song of the Volga Boatmen. And so at that point, you say something like that, and it sort of colors the whole experience for the other people in the room, among whom was Tom Cruise. So at that point, it was decided that this wasn't going to work out. And we had used a cue from Dead Presidents that Danny Elfman had written. And whenever we played this sequence for somebody and with Danny's music, they would all say, wow, that music is really cool. I mean, it was really cool.
Yeah.
And so that was it. So you got to get Danny Elfman, so. And then we postponed. So now I think, there was also this struggle between Cruise and the studio about when the release date would be. So this is perfectly fine with Tom because it meant that we had to push the release date to spring. So maybe it wasn't so much Alan. Who knows?
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I'm speculating. This is based on nothing.
Yeah. It's interesting how if you listen to Alan, because Alan Silvestri's score is leaked online.
Oh, yeah?
So you can listen to pieces of it, and it does feel like it fits. It could fit in some of the later movies, but it really doesn't feel like it fits the tone of the first movie as well as Elfman's does.
Well, he didn't really record very much. I don't know how much could have leaked onto
There are like 5 or 6 tracks.
Supposedly a lot of it went into Eraser, that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie.
That Silvestri carried over into that.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
But yeah, I mean, Elfman says that he only had 3 weeks to write and record the whole thing. So, I guess.
I think it was, I think it was more than 3, but.
He did it quickly.
Yeah, but, it's an amazing score.
He insisted on Brian being there every day with him.
Elfman insisted that?
Yeah. I said to Brian, I said, if you'd sat with Alan Silvestri every day, you would have had a great score. But Danny did great. I mean, he's brilliant. He's a genius.
Yeah.
That whole sequence, also the editing of it too, but the betrayal sequence when Phelps is explaining what Kittredge did, but it's really what he did, and Cruise is seeing that. Mm-hmm. And that whole piece of music that Elfman does there is really amazing. That whole sequence is amazing. So I assume that was something that you put together in the process along the way at some point.
Well, I haven't seen the picture since it opened.
Really? So well, you're talking to 2 people who have seen it probably 1,000 times.
Yes, I did actually read that you never really rewatch your work. Is that right?
Well, not until enough time has gone by.
Okay.
But it's possible.
It's 23 years now.
It's possible that enough time has gone by. But I don't know. But you can't imagine the pain of watching something for the 10,000th time.
Right. Yes.
So why would I ever want to see it again?
Yes. Sure.
When I worked on Steel Magnolias, I was asked to represent the production at a screening out at Warner Brothers for a senator or something. And there were a lot of people from Washington there, and I was supposed to host this screening because Herbert Ross was out of town, and I forget, they couldn't get anyone else, so they dragged me in. So I went to the screening, and I chit-chatted with the people from Washington, and then we went to the screening, and I sat down, and as the picture started to roll, I thought, I would rather die than watch this picture one more time. So I just couldn't. So I quietly got up and left, and I sat in my car until the screening ended. I thought I could not watch it one more time. I just cannot.
Well, do you want to ask about these script changes?
Oh yeah, so there was maybe you won't remember this, but there initially there's a sequence at the beginning before the title sequence where they do a mouse trap and they trick this guy, and then Tom Cruise takes off his mask, and then it cuts into the energetic title sequence. But in the shooting script, there's a sequence. It goes longer. It's like Ethan Hunt and the girl. He helps the girl walk around after they woke her up from her. She was under, and then And then there's a little bit more relationship building there, and then the sequence ended pushing in on her wedding ring, and then and then it cut to Phelps on the plane, and the shot starts on his wedding ring. In the final film, the sequence is just the mousetrap, and then she says, "Did we get it?" And he says, "We got it," and then it cuts to this awesome, amazing title sequence, and then it comes out and it just goes right into as scripted, right out of Phelps's ring and pulls out. I was wondering, did they shoot that? Did you then decide to cut that sequence? Yes. Okay, can you talk about what went into that decision?
I don't remember.
What was because I guess what's your relationship with the old show and the titles? Because the title sequence is obviously very reminiscent of the old show. Was the intention to always have the title sequence there, or was it going to be at the beginning of the movie?
No, I think it was always intended to be there. There's always a little teaser before the titles, right? I mean, I think they imitated the format of the show.
For the old show, the 80s show had a cold open, but I'm sorry, we are such nerds that we know this. But the old 60s show would just open with the title sequence.
Oh, I see.
So there wasn't a cold open. So I didn't know if that's what initially it was, and then. But
as I remember, it was a cold open, and they did see, what's her name? The girl.
Claire. The character's Claire Phelps.
You see Claire being revived, and for some reason, I don't remember why we cut it, but it made sense to cut it.
Yeah. Did you have any input on the title sequence? And because it was Kyle Cooper who designed that?
Kyle was hired because he had done the titles for Seven.
Right.
And we thought he was brilliant. And he had an editor named James Haygood who cut the sequence that Kyle designed. and he had a partner named Peter. He became a producer. He produced Blade. I forget his name. Peter. When you get to be my age, you forget names all the time. And also whole movies. Sorry about that, guys. I'm doing my best. But
That's good.
Do you remember cutting a sex scene out of the movie? Because it's actually in some of the trailers. There are images from it.
There was a love scene on a train or something.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's where it was. Okay.
I think it was on a train.
Okay.
And we just thought it didn't work and didn't need it. And
what is it? McQuarrie says that if it can go, it will. Something like that.
It should.
It should, yeah. Right.
I mean, a lot of people are afraid to take... I'm a big believer in taking things out just to see how it plays without them.
Right.
But there are a lot of directors who are afraid to do that. They don't want to experiment, you know. But to me, the whole cutting of the picture is all about experimenting and seeing what's going to work and what's not, you know. I call it trial and success, not trial and error, you know.
That's great.
But you know, you have to give yourself the freedom to fail and learn from trying things. But a lot of directors don't want to even risk. No, they can't take that out.
Yeah.
But sometimes my biggest contribution on a film is taking a scene out.
Right.
Not my biggest, but maybe one of my biggest, you know.
Do you remember taking anything else out from this that affected the movie besides those two moments? Not
really.
Okay.
And you've done, I think it's 10 or 11 movies with Brian De Palma.
Yeah.
Do you what's the working relationship like that on a day-to-day? Is he in the edit room with you, or does he kind of let you do cuts and then he comes in and watches?
He gives me a lot of freedom, a lot of space.
Yeah.
And then he comes in and, you know, then he weighs in. I mean, it depends on the project. Some pictures were written better than others, and you have less fixing to do in the editing room.
Right.
But, you know, when my first picture with Brian, I was 23, he was 28. So we were both kind of learning on the fly. He was 5 years more experienced than I was. And, you know, he has very particular talent that I don't have. But the talent, that I do have meshed well with his. And personality-wise, we're very compatible.
When this movie came out, it was sort of... One of the criticisms was that it was too confusing.
Yeah. Well, my theory about that is that it opened 3 weeks after Twister, which is probably the dumbest movie ever made. And compared to Twister, this is like a Russian novel, you know? So I think the critics, you know, trooped in to see Mission Impossible, another summer blockbuster like Twister, and, you know, and then all of a sudden they go, what? Wait, I should have been paying attention, you know, and then
right.
They weren't paying attention, and then they got confused, and, it's confusing.
Yeah.
But, you know, you meet 10-year-old kids who understood it perfectly, so...
Yeah.
We were some of those.
We were those 10-year-olds. We were 13, but yeah. We are definitely of the opinion that movie is unfairly thought of as complicated. It's really... all there, it all makes sense. And actually, of all the Mission Impossible movies, it probably makes the most sense, which is ironic.
I think also part of the problem was people didn't understand Tom when he said, so this has all been a mole hunt?
Right.
And I think people didn't know what mole hunt meant.
Right.
Or we mixed it too low or something, but mole hunt...
He repeats it, though.
Yeah.
But it is, I mean, it's, I don't know, I appreciate it when movies don't hold your hand with they don't spoon feed you the exposition.
Yeah.
You have to keep your brain on.
Yeah.
And do a little work. Like those are the movies. I mean, Hunt for Red October is another movie that we love, and I think it's kind of comparable to that too, where it's you got to pay attention. Okay, yeah, you got to pay attention.
Yeah. So I think the critics weren't paying attention, and they just got behind, and then they thought, what? I blame Twister.
Do you have any more questions for the first movie?
Well, I guess, so the Langley sequence, where they break in and Cruise comes in from the ceiling, I guess I would love to hear, I mean, I think we counted it, it's like 9 minutes of silence, basically.
Uh-huh.
And that's so rare for a movie, especially now, but even then, ever.
Especially a movie of that size. Too.
Yeah, and it's just, was there ever any debate about not having it be silent? Or
No.
I mean, and And that's awesome. And then it became such an iconic sequence too. I mean, can you talk about what it was like cutting that together?
Well, Jules Dassin saw it and said, "They can do that? They can just take a scene out of somebody's movie and put it in another movie." I mean, he was outraged.
Really? I never read a quote from him about it. I mean, I know it's the top copy scene, but
there's also Rififi. In Rififi, there's 20 minutes of silence.
Right.
I mean, when I say silence, I mean no music, no dialogue. I mean, in this case, they were actually, in our movie, he's trying to be quiet. In Rififi, I think it's a break-in of some kind, either into a safe or another building, and they're drilling through a floor. There's noises, there's sounds of what they're doing, but it's silent in the sense of no music, no dialogue.
Right.
The no music thing is something that Brian and I both learned from Bernard Herrmann, in which how he spots music, or how he spotted the music in the films, in Sisters in particular, was very instructive, because I had built this sequence in Sisters where the cutting got faster and faster and builds up to a moment when Margot Kidder slices William Finley with a scalpel. And I had imagined that the music would get more and more intense up to the peak, and we were spotting it, and Benny would say, "Not yet, not yet, not yet." I'm thinking, when? Not yet. And then as she cuts him, he says, "There's where we start the music."
Wow.
And if you look at North by Northwest, the famous scene of the crop duster chasing Cary Grant, there's no music in the whole sequence.
And it doesn't start until
it doesn't start until the plane crashes into the tanker. An explosion, fireball, and then the music comes in. So we realized and we learned that absence of music creates tension. You don't need music to build tension.
And then to transition, you did it again in Ghost Protocol.
Yeah.
In the sequence in the hallway with the E-screen. Brad, when we talked to Brad, he was saying that was basically his version of the silent sequence, was to have the tension there where it's just that empty, the hallway with just that one security guard.
Yeah, with Benji bringing the screen forward. Yeah.
How did you get onto Ghost Protocol?
Well, what I heard was that they were arranging meetings for Brad with various action editors, and I don't want to get into any invidious comparisons between me and other editors, but there are many action films that I see these days where I don't understand what's going on, because the cutting is more like a trailer for the scene as opposed to the scene itself. It's cut so quickly and with so little regard for time and space that you're not connected to the action because it's abstracted by these violations of time and space. So anyway, he kept saying, "I don't like the way they cut action. I want to cut like the first film was cut." And Ben Rosenblatt, who was the post supervisor on the picture, said, "Well, I think that guy's still around." Fortunately for me.
Was there any trepidation on your part coming back? I mean, these
No.
productions are notoriously...
I needed a job.
Yeah.
It's all about work. I have to pay the mortgage. I have to send my kids to school. I have to feed the family.
Right.
It's not about, I think I'll do this one or that one.
Right.
Well, let me see. Which picture do I want to work on? It's not like that at all. It's just like, a job. Great. Yes, I'll do it.
Well, the first movie was for Cruise's first movie as a producer.
Yes.
Was he hands-on in?
No. I mean, not with me.
Okay.
Brian had this rule. I forget how many pictures we had done up to that point, 6 or 7 or 8, I don't know. And his rule was no actors in the cutting room and no producers in the cutting room.
Oh.
So I said, well, now you have a star who's also the producer. How are you going to keep him out of the cutting room? And he said, he's not coming to the cutting room. He's welcome to screen the picture as often as he wants and give me notes, but he's not coming to the cutting room. And he never did.
Wow.
And was that the same for Ghost Protocol?
No, because Brian wasn't involved.
Right. So Cruise was in the edit room?
Yeah.
And was that this?
Not a lot because he's a busy man. You know?
Right. And was it the same? Is it the same kind of working relationship with Brad as it is with Brian? Where was Brad Bird there every day, or was he giving you freedom to do cuts and then he would come in, or how did that work?
Brad had a unique process I'd never encountered before in my life.
Wow.
We would get to a sequence and he would say, "Okay, run it for me frame by frame." And I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "Frame by frame. Tap, 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 tap." And I said, "Really?" He said, "I'm an animator. I can't see what I'm doing unless I see it frame by frame."
Wow.
So I said, "Well, I can't tell what I'm doing unless I see it running at speed, you know?" So I did what he wanted. And actually, I picked up a few pointers. You know, he would occasionally say, "Drop that frame." And I'd drop the frame and see that he had speeded up some action. I thought, well, that's interesting. I'll tuck that away for future reference. And yeah, I mean, Brad has a tremendous eye for detail. I had a hard time getting him to look at the big picture. I kept saying, "Brad, we have to watch the movie." And while we were fine cutting, I said, "You know, I think we should watch the picture." He said, "No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that." So it was getting close to when we had to show the picture to JJ. So I said, "Look, I'm going to watch the picture. You don't have to, but I want to watch the picture. So I need a couple of hours, you know." So he said, "All right, I'll watch it with you." So I said, "We're not going to stop. We're just going to watch the picture." Because it's very important, because you're not selling scenes to the audience. You're selling a 2-hour experience.
Right.
And you have to eat the pizza to know what the pizza tastes like. You know, you have to know what you're offering. All right, so we start to watch the picture, and immediately he starts writing. You know, now I had worked with Herbert Ross, who was before your time, but he was a great director. He directed the biggest stars in Hollywood.
Yeah.
He had the most important. He was the go-to Hollywood, the quintessential Hollywood studio director.
Right.
And
he did Footloose. I love Footloose.
He did Footloose, and he did The Goodbye Girl, and The Turning Point, and Pennies from Heaven. I forget all his credits. He's got 1 million credits.
Yeah.
But he used to say, you only get one opportunity to see the picture for the first time. So, and that's very important, because it gives you a sense of what the movie is all about and what the experience is about, and gives you a sense of where the problems may be. And you have to see it in total. You can't look at... You're working on a mosaic mural, and you spend all your time putting in tiles like this. And occasionally you have to step back and look at the whole thing and see what you're doing. It's hard to know unless you look at the whole thing. So anyway, he would tell people, when you watch the movie, please don't take notes. Just experience it. And then later, you know, you could watch it again and give notes and take notes. And, well, anyway, I made my speech to Brad, and so he sat there and he spent, half the time with his head down writing. So I thought, how can he watch what's going on if he's writing? But anyway, it turned out well. I mean, we had a preview, and when they brought the numbers in, we were all gathered in the projection booth waiting for the research people to come in with the first, statistics about the audience's response. When they came in, this room full of executives all burst into applause. I said to Brad, I've never seen this in my entire career. I've never seen executives applaud after a preview screening. So just be aware of that and take notice of this, because you'll probably never see it again. So it turned out well,
All right. That was it. Part 1 complete.
Yeah. And there's so much in there that he talked about. He brought up Jerry Greenberg, who he got Brian De Palma. He said stole work from him with Brian De Palma. Jerry Greenberg has done some amazing movies, from The French Connection, Apocalypse Now, Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, Kramer versus Kramer, Heaven's Gate, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, and a bunch of De Palma's 80s movies. If you haven't seen these movies, you should watch them. Just awesome stuff that Jerry Greenberg's done. And then I'm also curious he said that they tempt something in the first movie with dead presidents. Mm-hmm. some Elfman track from Dead Presidents. I really want to know what track that was.
Yeah, if you guys...
And what scene it was.
Yeah, let us know what you think it was.
I revisited just like, I think it was on Music for a Darkened Theater, whatever that Elfman compilation CD was. There's a suite. They don't have individual tracks, but they had a Dead Presidents suite, kind of a medley thing. And there are little parts of it. It does have some similar instrumentation.
Right.
As Mission Impossible, but I didn't really find anything that felt like it was exactly from the movie. So I don't know. I'd love to know what that was. We also just want to urge everybody to pre-order Paul Hirsch's book on Amazon. The book is called A Long Time Ago in a Cutting Room Far, Far Away.
We'll probably have him on again around that time, too, to plug this book.
Yeah, I think it comes out in November.
Yeah.
But you can pre-order it now, and we recommend you do that. Obviously, he has amazing stories to tell about all the incredible projects he has done.
And we will be reading it, too, in meticulous detail, looking for all the Mission Impossible stuff.
Yes, and he said there will be a chapter about Mission Impossible.
Yes.
And I bet maybe Ghost Protocol also, so I'm sure we'll get more tidbits out of it. This is rough.
Oh, boy.
Thank you to everybody for all the amazing iTunes reviews. Unfortunately, we lost the Pod Brawl, and now we have to do an ad for my friend Matt Enlow's podcast. We have to do it all month. So here we go. I got to read this.
All right,
I'm really sorry, everybody.
Right.
I want to tell you about another filmmaking podcast called Just Shoot It. It's hosted by two incredibly knowledgeable, charismatic, just magnetic directors that I can only aspire to emulate one day. It's not a lie to say that most of what I personally know about directing is from Matt and Oren's podcast, Just Shoot It. And please ignore all other podcasts, especially Light the Fuse, a deep dive on the intricacies of the Mission Impossible franchise. Making Movies is Hard, a podcast about the everyday struggles of independent film, or Respect the Process, a podcast about commercial directing hosted by a commercial director. Just Shoot It covers literally everything those podcasts cover, and then some. If you care about the craft and business of filmmaking, from how to sell projects to casting actors, designing the perfect shot list, Just Shoot It covers it all. So stop listening to this podcast right now, type in Just Shoot It into your podcast app, and get ready to have your filmmaking mind blown. Brutal. Sorry I had to do that.
Clearly, there's not a section of this podcast about not overwriting. I'll tell you that right now, because
I do want to say though, we got second place.
So thank you.
So we were hot on their heels, and we're a younger, newer podcast.
Yes.
So I got to say thank you to the missionaries, the Swanbecks out there. Thank you so much for writing your awesome reviews. It really helps us, even though we didn't win. It's okay. We love the reviews, and it helps us get more listeners and everything. And so I guess let's plug our...
We got to get the Patreon.
Yeah, let's plug our Patreon. So visit patreon.com/lightthefuse. Join up. Even just give us $1 a month would be awesome. Or if you have commitment issues and don't want to commit to doing monthly payments, you can always go buy a shirt.
Yep.
Buying a shirt from our website is also another way to support us, and you get to wear a cool shirt.
Yeah. Hopefully by the time this comes out, we'll have more shirts.
Yes.
Too.
We have lots of shirts in the works, and we will have more of those.
And we have our commentary track on there now, right?
Yes. Our commentary track should be up by now. So if you sign up for Mission Commander level, which is $5.95 a month or higher, then you'll get our commentary track for the first Mission Impossible movie.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yeah, we just recorded it.
One a month. So
yep, it's gonna be really cool. And I think also if you sign up for the next level, which I think is $10.95 a month, that's the Musgrave level, operations manager. Then you can join our monthly Skype chat.
Oh yeah.
And even if you can't make it on the Skype chat, you get the recording of it. We post it for you.
And you can send us questions.
You can send us questions and we will answer them. And it's basically like another bonus episode that month, but catered specifically to what you want to know.
And if you want to record your questions, send them in, and you can hear yourself.
Yes.
On the podcast.
Yeah, we'd love that. Check out our Patreon, and if not, buy a shirt. We got cool shirts that are there and in the works as well. And speaking of our Patreon, thank you to Thomas Jeffroy for helping us out. And this episode is brought to you by Jeremy Dillon, and it was also mixed by Luke Burson.
Excellently, as always.
Yes, as always. Thank you, all of you, so much.
And we'll be back next week for part 2.
Yep.
Paul Hirsch.
Thanks again for listening, everyone. And before we go, another mission, should you choose to accept it. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. And remember that you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LightTheFusePod and email us questions or comments at lightthefusepodcasts@gmail.com. If you'd like to watch the original Mission Impossible television show, all 7 seasons are currently available to stream on Amazon Prime. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.